All right, everyone. Welcome to the Community Capital webinar hosted by BALLE. My name is Jill Epner. I'm the Director of Community Engagement for BALLE. We're really happy to have you guys here. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I know a few people are still signing in here. Our Community Capital series launched in 2011, and it happens on the first Tuesday of every month at 10 o'clock Pacific time. The series is co-hosted by our good friends with RSF Social Finance, and we have an incredible group of advisors and community capital pioneers that help us craft all the programming, and those are RSF, Portfolio 21 Investments, Main Street Resources, and the Solidago Foundation. We do a lot of work with great partners to make sure that we get an incredible community capital content out to you guys. This whole webinar series is focused exclusively on tools that you can take home and try out in your region. We feature each month kind of a case study with a community capital innovator, Claudia Viek in this case, who I'll introduce in a second. Someone who's developed and piloted a working model for connecting investments in businesses and farms to local needs using all of our local resources. Innovators for this series will present their model, and we're going to allow a lot of a time for Q&A, so you guys will have a good chance to ask Claudia some questions as well. So I'm going to tell you real quick about how the webinar is going to work, and then we're going to jump into the presentation. We're going to do a few housekeeping items in just a moment, and Claudia is going to present for about 25 to 30 minutes, and then we've left a good 20 minutes for our Q&A, which Mikhail will tell you kind of all about, and then we're going to wrap up a few minutes before 11 and kind of go from there. So I'm going to turn the floor over to Mikhail, our Spreading Solutions Associate with BALLE, and he's going to run through a couple housekeeping items with you guys. Mikhail?
Thanks, Jill. Hello, my name is Mikhail Davila, and I serve as the Spreading Solutions Associate at BALLE. I'm going to review a bit of housekeeping, like Jill said, and provide a few reminders about this webinar series, and then hand it back to Jill to introduce Claudia, our speaker today. So if you are dialed in by phone but have not joined us in the webinar room, please find a link in your reminder email from our registration system, iLink. Because of the number of webinar participants, we have the phone line muted today. If you have a question for our presenters at any time during the webinar, please type your question in the public chat window to the right. We'll hold most questions to the end of the webinar when we will have time set aside for moderated Q&A. If you have technical difficulties at any point during the webinar, please note this in the chat window, and I will send you a private chat to help you get sorted out. The private chat will show up as a new tab to the right of the public chat window in the top right corner of your screen, which will flash red once the private chat has been initiated. Immediately after this webinar, you will receive a short survey. This will help us evaluate and make improvements for future webinars. Your participation is greatly appreciated. Also, after each webinar, we will email all attendees and registrants a link to a full recording of the webinar, along with the presentation slides and a copy of the questions from the chat. Please watch for these materials in an email from me over the next few days. If you have any other questions about registration or technical aspects of the webinar, I'll be happy to hear from you afterwards. With that, I'll hand the floor back over to Jill.
Excellent. Thanks, Mikhail. We're so excited to have Claudia join us here today. So today's webinar, we're going to explore how whatever capital strategy that one might employ, it has to be accompanied with entrepreneur support and technical assistance to get entrepreneurs ready for an infusion of capital and help them to succeed once they have it. Some of you guys know me. I was, before I joined BALLE, a food entrepreneur for several years and had my own kind of challenges with access to capital. So I feel the pain of an entrepreneur trying to get themselves ready and find a community and get some support when it comes to gaining capital. That was something I was always very challenged with. So I'm thrilled to introduce our featured speaker today, Claudia Viek, who is the CEO of the California Association of Micro Enterprise Opportunity, known as CAMEO. I think CAMEO has, like BALLE, a nice long name, mouthful to go with a short acronym. So Claudia has been the CEO of CAMEO since 2007. She's been a pioneer in both the micro enterprise and business incubation fields in California. She's the former executive director and founder of the Renaissance Entrepreneurship Center, an award-winning training, financing, and business incubation program in San Francisco. Claudia represents the state micro business associations on the National AEO board. She served on the board of National Business Incubation Association and founded the Pacific Incubation Network of business incubators from Baja to Alaska. Claudia is the past president of the San Francisco Bay Area chapter of NAWBO and continues to serve on numerous nonprofit boards in her community. We're so excited to have you with us today, and thank you for sharing all this great knowledge with us, Claudia. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Jill. And I'm very, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you great.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you so much. I'm a big fan of BALLE's and have known Michelle and Pam Shalou and all of your leadership for a long time. So I'm very pleased to be invited to talk about really one of the keys to success in getting access to capital to the very small, locally owned businesses in our communities. And that is a term which we hate to use, technical assistance, because it's really doesn't really mean anything. So I'm going to really talk about what it means, how to deliver it, some tools that exist, and also some of the challenges also to providing this essential piece of assistance to businesses that really ensure their success. But before we get started, I'd like to kind of tell you a little bit of a story that's actually from my own experience living in the Bernal Heights neighborhood of San Francisco. Some of you might have heard of it for many, many years. And this is a clip from a video called CAMEO Connects. You can see the whole video if you want to, but this little clip is going to give you an example of the effectiveness of business technical assistance as the business starts and grows and then gets access to a loan. Do you want to run that now?
I started Bernal Cutlery from home. I was laid off from a job and my wife was working freelance, and so we needed a little extra income and we wanted to have one of us at home with baby. And so I was sharpening knives and I thought, you know, this is fun. I could do this. So put up some flyers and I got a couple little orders in, and it just kind of grew from there. It's definitely very difficult to get any kind of loan as a small business, and the challenge is, you know, show us that you have a viable business. Yeah, having that available was a real godsend that really helped me to bring it to the next level here.
Great. Thank you. I think that speaks to a lot of people's experience, and certainly I have to tell you, I got the whole idea of putting locally owned businesses into the definition of micro, from my experiences with BALLE. So this little video really grew out of how do you tell the story about the impacts of organizations on businesses like Josh Daniel. So let me just tell you a little bit more about CAMEO. Let's see, I need to click. All right, hold on. We're a network of 85 organizations throughout the state that provide an infrastructure of support to very small and micro businesses. Historically, the programs were created to reach lower income women, emerging majority entrepreneurs who didn't have access to capital or the business networks or the mentors. But since the meltdown, our economic meltdown in particular, and in California we've had very persistent high unemployment for quite a few years, the whole notion of a micro business has expanded to encompass all locally owned small businesses, because that's who we are. It's 85% of businesses in California are micro, have less than 5 employees. And in rural regions, it's closer to like 98%. And another factor is that self-employment is now a labor market trend. Having grown slowly over the last 10 years, in increasing rates, now it's projected to grow 25% over the next 5 years. So we're all of us on this call we care about sparking lasting, healthy local economies, and we all want to see the entrepreneurial spirit in our communities flower, like Josh at Bernal Cutlery, I should mention that he's just expanded to a larger, he was sharing space with other small businesses, and now he has his own business a few blocks away. And then, like Jill herself, too, this is just the kind of entrepreneurial spirit we want to develop and get started, and then also help grow. Now, our role, too, at CAMEO has been evolving from supporting our member organizations with capacity building to really serving as an intermediary and bringing in new tools, and I'm going to talk about some of that later. But first, I want to just tell you, why are we talking about technical assistance in a capital access webinar? I want to give you another story of Jose and Rosie Rodriguez, who started King City Tire in the southern Salinas Valley in 2003. King City is in a very depressed part of the Central Coast, and there aren't many resources around, and certainly there isn't much access to capital. The El Pájaro Community Development Corporation, one of CAMEO's members, worked with the Rodriguezes for almost 2 years, providing them with what we call business and credit technical assistance. And then the Rodriguezes qualified for a $1 million SBA loan, and that enabled them to expand the tire store to include a car wash and auto parts, and they were able to hire another 11 employees. And in King City, that's a huge increase in employees. Without providing business technical assistance, new or growing, struggling business owners can't qualify for loans, and that slows the job creation and the economic activity in a region. Many of the businesses that are helped by CAMEO's members really need a hand to become loan ready. They can't qualify for a regular bank loan, they don't have home equity or collateral, and maybe their credit is spotty, particularly after the downturn. A lot of people have maxed out on their credit cards or just got behind in their payments. And a line of credit, forget about it. We're seeing some improvement now, but we're not seeing the banks doing loans really under $200,000 unless you have absolutely perfect credit, plenty of collateral, lots of cash flow. Maybe you don't even need a loan, right? So what has happened is that the nonprofit lenders, called Community Development Financial Institutions, and I'm going to abbreviate that to CDFIs, these CDFIs have stepped up to fill the gap in the credit access. Now, technical assistance works. I've been around this field for, 25 years now, and so the annual surveys of clients, plus the annual surveys that CAMEO does of these of our 85 members that served roughly 21,000 businesses last year, and the Aspen Institute, which is the national research group, have found that when a business receives assistance, they have an 80% success rate of making it through the first 3 to 5 years of startup. And then, in addition, they add another 2 jobs on average. So that job creation, we need to think about that. It can also encompass the 1099 workers or the independents, which, as I said, is part of that labor market trend that's increasing more and more. So when I mention job creation, let's think about it in a more broad way as economic activity that includes working with other small businesses. Let's see. So let me define what I mean by technical assistance. It can be defined as business technical assistance and credit technical assistance. So business technical assistance includes training. It could be a 10 to 14-week practical hands-on curriculum, including coaching, peer support, maybe some industry-specific workshops, legal assistance, even tax preparation. When we talk about credit technical assistance, we're talking about can be financial education, pretty broad, credit repair, learning how to get your financial projections pulled together, and the basics of loan packaging. One of let's see, flip around, excuse me. The SBA has reported that 50 to 80% of small businesses fail really due to poor management decisions, which would include a decision to take on more debt without, for example, having a marketing plan that will show you how you're going to pay back that debt. So that's why we at CAMEO really harp on the issue of business assistance as being so key to success and growth. Let's see. Okay, I think, hold on. Oops. Okay. I also want to talk about post-loan. That's something that you don't hear of so much, but it's very important to have assistance available to businesses after they've received the loan. And that can be a quarterly financial review, maybe some legal assistance, some mentoring or coaching around expansion issues, access to a more global marketing plan, export plan, maybe a government procurement. Particularly for veterans, that's a big issue, is getting veterans procurement, and so you need really the help to get linked to all of the government and corporate procurement programs. And market research too is a really important element. The post-loan technical assistance, I have to say, is, in my experience, to be a critical success factor in getting a high rate of loan repayment, especially for more high-risk loans, which would be startups or businesses that had struggled during the down economy. So let's talk about market research, because here's a couple of tools that I'm just excited about and I like to promote whenever I can. This is the two organizations, MarketLink and Intercity Advisors, really represent an alternative economic development model, which is based on the idea that entrepreneurs drive the economies, drive your economies, and jobs are created not through expensive business attraction and tax giveaways, but by supporting existing companies in a community. This approach connects entrepreneurs to the resources and information that they need to make good management decisions and to grow. And it's almost like providing an R&D department that large corporations normally have. So let me tell you about MarketLink, which is operated through the Oregon Microenterprise Network, OMEN, which is our counterpart in Oregon. They provide sophisticated market research services to more low-income or disadvantaged entrepreneurs, many in rural areas that would never have access to this type of assistance or technology. The research helps the entrepreneurs find desired customer base, tap into these new markets, and again, make good, informed business decisions by identifying trends within their respective industries. I have the link up there to Elise Kerr at OMEN. The Intercity Advisors is located in Oakland, and their methodology is to identify high growth potential businesses, and they provide very intensive technical assistance, very much volunteer-driven, lawyers, venture capitalists, bankers, business advisors, and they've had tremendous success in spurring growth and increasing jobs, and particularly jobs for the inner-city residents in Oakland. Some of you may have heard of Revolution Foods. That's one of their clients. Very fast-growing now national corporation. And I encourage you to go to their website and see some of the businesses, some of them you'll have heard of, that have benefited. And they're now interested in expanding to more locations, not just in California, but all over the U.S. Now, let me address some of the challenges to this beautiful formats I just told you about. And really, it's funding our government funds, the community development funds, the SBA funds, the rural development funds. I'm sure all of you are aware of those, have really, really been retrenched. And bank donations and investments have maintained fairly pretty much the same over the last really 8 years that I've seen. I haven't seen any increases, although there have been some bank investment. Citibank and some others have investment, and Wells Fargo certainly has a very good hybrid equity investment. But since I'm not going to talk about capital right now, I really want to just talk about the challenges to trying to provide business technical assistance to take advantage of the capital that is out there. Really, so many of the CDFIs that we work with in California are very small in scale. Of the 30 that are operating in California that are members of CAMEO, only really 3 are doing more than 100 loans a year, and most of them are making less than 50 loans a year. So you can't cover your operational costs. You can't cover the hand-holding that you need to do through interest rates and your fees. Also, many rural areas just don't have access to the kind of business assistance they need, and there's a real variance in quality. Some SCORE, which are the volunteer business assistants, some of them are good, but some of them are, not so great. Some SBDCs don't always serve startups, and there are many areas, particularly rural areas, that don't have any access to microloans at all. So let me just say there are some tools which are emerging that I believe provide solutions to these challenges. Not entirely. Funding is still an issue, and CAMEO does a lot of advocacy in Washington and in Sacramento. In fact, I'm going to Washington today to advocate for all of us and what we stand for. But anyway, in terms of actual tools that are emerging that can address some of these issues, and especially the issue of cost, the Axion Texas organization has created a platform called the Micromanagement Services, MMS, and it increases cost efficiencies in a CDFI by outsourcing the underwriting and speeding that up. You're able to increase your loan production and generate more fees and more interest. The MMS is used by, and some of you probably already heard of it, it's used by larger CDFIs around the country, but in California, CAMEO is aggregating small volume CDFIs on the platform. So we've licensed with the Axion Texas to provide this underwriting platform to our members who are small volume lenders. And it's going to enable particularly underserved areas that don't have micro-lending. It's going to enable a very cost-effective way to get a small dollar, the under $50,000 loans out there. Again, though, the key is technical assistance. And what the MMS allows you to do is to refocus shift your business model and focus on marketing and outreach and providing assistance to the businesses, because your underwriting has been speeded up and is really allows you to do more loans, and therefore you don't have to increase your staffing costs in order to do more loans. I'm not sure if I'm as clear as I can be, but we're just piloting this right now, and next year I probably should do a webinar on just how it works even better. Another, what I feel is a true transformative technology is the Inventure. It's a cell phone app which is called Insight, that is created by the Inventure company. It was it was created for developing countries and microfinance, and it's now being distributed in the U.S. And how it works is, it's just so cool. The borrower will text in basic income and expenses at the end of every day to the CDFI staff. Like they ping them at, let's say, maybe 5:30 or 6 at night. So they text in this information, and then by the end of the month, they have a P&L statement. And this information really helps them manage their business. Usually these are cash-based businesses, little restaurants, or maybe flea market businesses, or just a lot of businesses are cash-based. And it facilitates provision of business technical assistance because you can see where the problems are really, where the potential problems are before they become crises. It also helps the borrower to monitor their portfolio, to gauge the ability of their borrower to make payments, maybe restructure the loan, and that's a little snapshot of how it works. It also can be used by the technical assistance providers to give financial education to their clients and then get them loan ready eventually. It's been proven to improve the overall business performance of the businesses that use it. It also helps you to track their success and be able to measure the impact of your services, which is very important. So I'm giving a plug for Inventure. CAMEO is not implementing that right at the moment, but we're planning to do that, of course, as soon as we raise some funds to do it. But I wanted you to know about its existence because they are now also launching nationally in the U.S. So when you think of capital, you need to think of technical assistance, like bees and honey. They're working together. There are ways that can happen. You can get banks to refer to a CDFI of the applicants that they've rejected. They can refer to a locally owned CDFI. That's one way to do that. Also, forming strategic partnerships, such as the Renaissance Center has formed a partnership with Working Solutions, and Josh at Bernal Cutlery is one of the examples of the business that benefited from that. Axiom San Diego has an MOU with a small business development center down there, which is now housed in their office twice a week, and every single one of their borrowers is required to get assistance from that small business development center counselor. I encourage you to also talk to your community colleges and try to build in a technical assistance function to their training, which can be a challenge, but again, a lot of the community colleges realize entrepreneurship training needs to be part of their workforce strategy. And speaking of workforce agencies, they're called workforce WIBs. What is it? Workforce. Why am I forgetting the I? Initiative boards. They also can fund business technical assistance, and they need your support to push this through the Workforce Investment Board, They're made up of small businesses or businesses in your communities, and they are allowed to fund technical assistance programs, but they don't because they don't really understand them. So they need to hear from folks like you to say this is something we need in our community and we need to work it out. If somebody has a particular interest in the workforce, please feel free to get in touch with me and I can give you more background. And our website at CAMEO also, which I will just go back to the beginning. Give it to, oops, there you go. Also has information on workforce and, excuse me, no, keeps on moving. So I'm happy to take any questions. I think we're right on time.
Perfect.
Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Claudia. Perfect. So just a reminder, everyone, we've got a couple questions that have been in the chat window, but because we have such a large group, we keep our phone lines muted. So go ahead and put your questions in the chat window, and I will ask them to Claudia. So great presentation, Claudia. We have on the line and on the webinar, we have such a nice mix of folks. We have entrepreneurs, we have folks from lending institutions, we have a few coaches and kind of consultants that work with clients, and we also have a few folks that attended our Integrated Capital and Connections Day at our conference last. We have kind of a nice range of people on the call. So some of these questions I imagine that I'm going to be asking from a few different perspectives. So I thought we could start with kind of some more nuts and bolts about CAMEO. You talk so much, and I can attest so much to the need for technical assistance throughout the access to capital kind of process. Can you talk a little bit more about how CAMEO provides the technical assistance? Is it through partner organizations? Do you do any work yourself? Like, tell us a little bit more about how that gets provided.
Yeah, CAMEO is, I call it the trade association with benefits, because we help raise money for our members and advocate for their needs, and we also give them hands-on technical assistance. But the support for the entrepreneurs and the startup businesses and the growth businesses comes from our members directly, and we support that. One way we support it now is creating these tools that I mentioned, the underwriting platform. We also have a platform with Kiva. We aggregate small volume lenders so they can become Kiva partners. We're piloting that. That's for capital access too. So that you have loan-ready people who've gotten that technical assistance who can then benefit from a Kiva loan. So we look at innovations to be able to scale up micro-lending and access to capital. Right now it's very small. Our members maybe make 1,500 loans a year as of 2012. We're seeing that increase quite a bit. We'd like to see 10,000 loans a year of under 50,000 made in our state.
Wonderful.
Does that answer your question, Jill?
Yeah, one of the questions I was going to ask you was actually about about your Kiva collaboration. That's really fascinating to me. I know it's something you have been piloting as of April, if memory serves. So, can you tell us? My understanding is that it's a crowd-funded kind of micro. But that to me, when we talk, this webinar series really is interested in some really innovative stuff, and to me, that's a really innovative project. So, would you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Well, Kiva has a big demand from domestic investors that want to invest in their own backyard, and CAMEO was looking for more capital for our members, and we have a philosophy of getting people to invest in their own backyard. So it was a really good marriage of mission. Most of the Kiva partners, field partners in the U.S. are larger CDFIs. The problem is if you're a small CDFI, as I said, doing less than 50 loans a year, that's not, you're not big enough for Kiva to spend the time on. The due diligence that they do is pretty extensive. So CAMEO basically prepares our members who are interested in working with Kiva. And people are very interested because the capital is 0% interest. If you were going to be making a loan through Kiva, let's say you decided you were going to do that, it's not a donation, you get paid back, but you don't get any interest on that. So for the CDFI, it's fantastic because they don't have to pay for the money, and they're able to get, therefore, more income from the spread between, they make the loan at 8%, maybe 10%, and they're able to make a little bit more. The loans are small, though. They're under $10,000. But I think this is a great model, and I think we're going to see it increasing in scale over time. But again, the issue is how do you get a small CDFI that's doing microlending to become a field partner? There needs to be a way to aggregate them.
Wonderful. So I'm thinking of some of the entrepreneurs that are out there and are kind of looking to raise some funds. Are there suggestions that you have on folks out there, for entrepreneurs out there? Are there some suggestions that you could give to them as far as either working with your membership folks at CAMEO, or working, with your network partners at CAMEO, or with other like organizations? What would you offer to some of the folks out there looking for funding and tech?
Mm-hmm. Well, every state, there are CDFIs in every state. Many tend to be more urban-oriented. There are also other crowdfunding sites such as Lending Club. That does require you to have pretty good credit, but it has been helpful to a number of people. And then I'm sure people have already heard of Kickstarter, Indiegogo. Those are donation sites, but I know of businesses that have raised funds through their networks for their business through the Kickstarter and Indiegogo sites. So I don't want to rule that out. Sometimes people have used Kickstarter and have used Kiva. It's like in the old days, you used to raise money off your credit cards and maybe get a little home equity line. Now people are using crowdfunding sites for that. But it only works if you have a really strong network already. One barbecue sauce, Park's Finest in Los Angeles. John Eric, a very young guy, very active in his community, lots of community barbecues, and he loved to create different sauces. So when he was laid off from his job at United Airlines as a baggage handler, he put out on his Facebook wall a call for funds and raised $8,000 to buy a barbecue rig, a very large rig, so he has an ability to do barbecue at large community events. He was so successful. He's like, through Yelp and through using other social media, he was so successful that now he's opened a brick and mortar barbecue place called Park's Finest in Echo Park area.
Excellent.
So
go ahead, sorry.
No, I'm just saying that's one example of, pretty grassroots fundraising or capital raising. So I think you have to be as flexible as possible.
I found myself that that fundraising is an all year round and many different methods type of job. So I think you're right. A lot of people, there's a lot of different components of fundraising that you put together, and each of them serve a kind of a different purpose and everything. So it's not just the same, let me get a $100,000 loan anymore. It could be 5 different types of funding all put together.
I should mention that the nonprofit CDFIs now, many of them are qualifying for SBA guarantees, which makes it possible for people to get larger loans over $50,000 up to $200, $250. So if that is a need for an entrepreneur that may be on this call, you should check out a local CDFI to see if they have the Community Advantage program, and that's a terrific resource.
Is there any sort of a resource you could offer or suggest to find out about CDFIs in different regions? Is there a database or anything that has that?
Yeah, Opportunity Finance Network is really the largest network of national CDFIs. I don't know if all of them are in their network. I haven't checked it recently. In California, you can come to CAMEO's website, and we do have a list of all the lenders that are on a map, so you can actually see a map. The SBA, the U.S. SBDC, has the U.S. Small Business Administration website, sba.gov. You can go to the map of the U.S. and you can find the Small Business Development Center in your region, and they will be able to refer you to appropriate lenders in your area, as well as business technical assistance. Women's Business Centers also are on a map, and they're a tremendous resource. So the SBDCs for Women's Business Centers are all available. You can find them through the US SBA.gov site.
Wonderful. And actually a question from Wendy came up earlier in the chat, and it was since CAMEO is really just focused in California, are there other like-minded organizations that provide similar tools in different parts of the country? So you just gave us some great examples for some kind of CDFIs and lenders and financial institutions. Are there other like organizations like CAMEO that people should also?
Well, there are 15 state microenterprise associations. Some of them are staffed, some are volunteer-driven. I mentioned OMEN in Oregon Microenterprise Network. There's one in Washington State, Michigan, Pennsylvania, South Carolina. Ohio. So there are a number of other groups, but right now CAMEO is the only one that is hosting the MMS platform and doing the Kiva aggregation as well. However, OMEN has the market research market link program that's so terrific. So everybody does something, they all do them a little differently.
Wonderful. Can we talk a little bit about the time frame that you find most common when it comes to working with entrepreneurs? I mean, again, I'm putting myself back in the shoes. It was probably for me a year-long process, that it could have been. Is there as an entrepreneur and as a lender, can you give us an idea of what that process looks like in working together?
It's funny. It's been fairly consistent. There is a gestation process of, a year to 3 years for a small business to really take shape and start growing. And I don't even want to say breaking even because that can take longer, but usually it's a 1 to 3 year process that you have to commit to. So you really have to have a passion, as I'm sure you can attest to, Jill, for what you're doing. Some people take off right away. They're able to, do very well. We hear about those. But more common is the longer trajectory. So we usually say, if you have a job, don't quit your job when you're starting your business. Try to do them at the same time, if at all possible, until you have established a market demand for your business. A lot of businesses start online now and are able to generate some market demand, and then they are able to transition into a full-time gig. I think that's what's so interesting now are the online and the eBay businesses. And in fact, for some of the BALLE folks on the line, we're seeing in the city of Santa Cruz in particular a outreach to eBay and online businesses and cottage kitchens to that's home-based, food, to come in and get business technical assistance. So the city of Santa Cruz has actually got a program now where they're extending business technical assistance and small loans to home-based online businesses. I think that's so fantastic. They made a commitment in that city not to focus their scarce resources on business attraction and tax giveaways, but on cultivating the very, very small business on various levels, but the home base in particular, I thought that was very interesting. I think there's a BALLE chapter in Santa Cruz too.
The Cottage Food Act was something that I know I personally was really excited about. For those of you guys who are less familiar with that, California this year passed a law where they allow sale of certain food items that you can prepare out of your home instead of going into a commercial kitchen. And there's some regulations that go around food safety, but it's a wonderful, it's really wonderful to bring down the barrier for food aspiring food entrepreneurs to get to market. So to hear that Santa Cruz is taking it a step further and is looking at is combining that with the technical assistance that you talk about and opening up even more opportunities, that's really wonderful. Really wonderful to hear.
Yeah. And many of you have heard of the co-working spaces, maker spaces. Those are another, they're evolving out of what we used to call business incubation, but they're really driven by the makers themselves. And this is a fantastic resource in your community for generating entrepreneurial activity and energy. And we have identified certain folks that are doing that in California, and we're bringing them forward, particularly as rural development strategies. When I say we're bringing them forward, we're showing our members what's possible so that they will learn from the people who are doing it and incorporate that.
Yeah, co-working spaces are a wonderful, wonderful way to connect with your community. You know, you talked a lot about the importance of community through this. Can you share some examples? You know, one of the tenets that BALLE really holds near and dear is the concept of ownership mattering. You know, being a business owner really matters, connects you very much to your place that you kind of live in. Can you talk a little bit about how community and ownership and really relationships kind of matter in the process of kind of connecting and resourcing these entrepreneurs with microfinance? Talk about that a little bit.
Oh boy, I think it's sort of self-evident, but if you finish watching that video, that's what it says at the end, is we're, you know, really all hungry for connection with each other and for meaning. And I think BALLE's work exemplifies that. So this is, I'm just preaching to the choir here, I think. But what I just think we've seen that the old ways don't work, and a new economy is emerging, an economy of people working independently, working in teams, working in maker spaces. All of the people are hungry for connection and are looking for ways to make it work. And the two cohorts, it's really interesting from the research that we have. We haven't commissioned this research, but we work with a group called Emergent Research. I really recommend you going to their website, emergentresearch.com. They've published a study called The State of Independence that came out last year. And they show that the growth sectors in self-employment are the over 50s, who are maybe early retirees or forced retirees or retirees who need to and want to be engaged in the economy, in their own economy and their neighborhood, and also the millennials under 35s. And these two cohorts are the ones that are really embracing self-employment in a variety of arenas. You can call it freelancing, you can call it independent contractors, you can call it you know, the 1099 worker. There's it's been an area that's been hard, or home-based business. It's been hard to sort of get your arms around in the past, but we're starting through this research to understand it better. And also because both government and corporations have been shedding jobs. So where are the jobs being created now? They're in our own local communities. And BALLE has known this and has celebrated and embraced it. I do think we need to focus on those policies, though, that will support it. And I'd like to encourage, I'm kind of going beyond what you said, Jill, saying the importance of connection and community, but it's also important to support policies that are going to make sure we're not just a flash in the pan, you know, that will be sustainable over time. You can't take it for granted. And that's why I'm so glad to be able to speak about this, because there are challenges. The government is cutting back, so we have to step up and find ways to support this entrepreneurial spirit, and particularly focusing on young people and over 55. That's what I would recommend.
Wonderful. I think that's actually a perfect way to end our time today. I couldn't have picked it any better. So thank you so much. Just a couple, any final thoughts before I go into a couple housekeeping items, Claudia?
No, I guess there are no questions then? Is that good?
No, we asked all we asked all the questions that came up in the chat, and we're going to be sending out an email to all of the participants that's going to have this a link to the presentation, so they'll be and a recording, so they'll be able to listen to it again. And is your contact information, if people had questions, would it be okay if they contact?
Absolutely. I have the website is there, and my email is cviek, V as in Victor, IEK, @microbiz.org. And our website has a lot of information about workforce and lending, micro-lending. Those are two areas we're very focused on because we're looking at resources that have not been tapped to support technical assistance in your communities. And workforce funding is one of those resources. So we'd like to get the whole country working in that direction. And I think BALLE could be a great, your members could be working with their workforce boards to get that to happen. But I'm happy to answer questions when I get back from Washington, where I'm speaking to Department of Labor about these very same things. So. I just appreciate everybody's work and also the research and the reports that BALLE has on its website. We've used that a lot to make the case for microbusiness.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, quick plug for CAMEO. What a great organization, and for anyone on the call, I would encourage you to check out their website, microbiz.org, and there's some wonderful, just a wonderful network of partner organizations, very like-minded organizations that are all trying to do the same great work that we're all doing. So definitely check them out. So after each of the webinars, we're going to send all of you guys a link to the audio and the presentation materials and a link to our survey so we can keep improving our content. You'll find that in your email the next day or two from my colleague Mikhail Davila that you heard from at the beginning. You guys can also, you'll get a copy of this recording. You can also purchase some of our past recordings of our webinars if you go to the BALLE website, which is www.bealocalist.org. And for many of you guys are members that are on this call. For those of you who aren't, I would encourage you also to visit the BALLE website for and take a look at our different membership options. Several of our membership options include actually access to all of these webinars, which we, as many of you know, usually charge for. And one of the most valuable benefits that we hear from different membership levels is we have affinity groups, and we have actually a community capital themed affinity group, and it allows peer-to-peer conversation with all of our members around very specific topics. So since you guys are all really interested in community capital, I would encourage you to check that out. And again, you can find that all at bealocalist.org. So Claudia, again, thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us today, and thanks to all the participants for the questions that you guys asked and for your participation. Hope you got to take away a lot of great goodies from Claudia's presentation. So thank you again, and we will be sending out the recording for the webinar and also Claudia's information to you guys soon. Thanks, Claudia. Yeah. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks to everybody. Good luck. Bye-bye.
Take care. Have a great week, everyone.